Welcome to ACCI's podcast, a space where we discuss how a movement of Australian Christians is working to transform communities and nations one life at a time.
Well, welcome everyone, and it's great to have you joining with us with ACCI One Life at a Time. And we have a special guest slash legendary missionary, Ross Winchester. Welcome, mate.
Hi, Enoch. How you doing?
It's so good to have you here, and we're just going to have a great conversation around connecting and raising up next gen leadership in the nations. And I just really thank you for your time, and really want to honor you in all that you do. And I'm hoping that through this podcast that we will be able to see people engaged, but also get to in your heart about what God has done and is doing through you guys. So really excited, and let's get into it. And so my name's Enoch, and I am working here at ACCI, and it's an honor to be the missions manager. And previously to that, I was a missionary in Thailand as a church planter. And so with my wife, Summer, and my 3 kids, we left Australia having no idea, but felt called by God to plant a church. And so we've just recently relocated back into Australia, and so I'm really excited to continue on the missions journey, but with this ACCI. So that's a little bit about me. And but hey, Ross, why don't you just share a bit about what's happening in your life and what you've been involved with over the years?
Okay, yeah. Well, we left for Thailand in 1983, 40 years ago. My wife and 2 boys, and we were there for about 11 years. Serving God, went back to Australia for a couple of years working with the World Harvest Institute, a ministry training missionaries. Then we relocated to China we were there for about almost 20 years. And 2 years ago, relocated back to Thailand, but this time up in the north in Chiang Mai. So that's our timeline.
Wow. And, we had a conversation the other week, and every time I get to connect with you, Ross, it's always another story, and I always feel encouraged. But I can't believe it. 40 years you've been serving with ACCI. I think you're one of the longest serving missionaries, and you're still going. What keeps you going these days?
I think I must have only been about 5 when I left for the field, so that adds up.
That's it. It's all the pad thai and rice keeps you going.
That's it. Yeah. I keep getting asked when I'm going to retire, and I say, well, I'm just taking 1 decade at a time in this approach.
That's great.
This stage of my life. So we're here till Jesus comes back.
Come on, that's what we're talking about. And hey, Ross, we got to connect towards the end of last year, up here in northern Thailand, and Ross came and translated from Thai into English. We had a Thai-speaking pastor as a guest, and so it's great to have you up there in Chiang Rai and get to connect. And I'm quietly jealous sometimes. I see Ross post on social media and involved in different areas that I've witnessed and been part of, and so I'm just so thankful that you can continue to encourage the leaders in that nation, and so that's awesome. But one thing, Ross, I really admire and that I've witnessed is this genuineness that you have in local leadership and the importance of that. And over the years, you would have seen different trends, different things that have happened, and particularly from that first season in Thailand to now, where you are now, is there anything that you've seen that sort of shifted in that sort of 20-year, 2-decade gap from, I guess, the early 80s to where we are right now?
Well, a lot of things, the whole world's changed and is changing. But as you know, in Thailand, it's a very hierarchical society. It's very transactional in the relationship approaches. And overall, that hasn't really changed in a big way. But with the younger people, there is, I guess, more of an entrepreneurial spirit rather than being locked into this hierarchical model. Yeah, so we're seeing people with vision, with a heart to step out and do something, and that's sometimes a little hard given the cultural structures that they're facing.
Yeah, definitely. And I think one of the things that we really wanted to cover today in this time of spending time together is really about how to engage that next gen leadership and how we empower them, not just as foreigners or not just as missionaries, but how do we empower next gen leaders? And it's something that I've witnessed you from an outside continuing to do in every location that you go to. What are some things that you're working on right now with, I know you're highly involved within that pastor network and the local leadership in Thailand. What's one of the ways that you're engaging them right now?
Well, I'm just coming alongside the local leaders there and trying to, you can't, in this culture, you can't, unless you've built relationship and trust, you can't give suggestions because nobody's going to listen to you. So, there's a concept called the power of presence, where you attend their meetings. Maybe it's a committee meeting, a regional meeting, or pastors fraternal, and it might be really, really boring, and it might there's a plane just going overhead. I don't know where you can hear it, but I certainly can. We live next to the airport here in Chiang Mai. Yeah, so it's instead of just going somewhere because you're the preacher or you've got a position of prominence or you've got some authority to say something, in these meetings you just come and you're a nobody, but you're there, and that's the power of presence because people notice. They notice that you're there with them in their struggles, in their situations, talking about the problems they're facing. And even if you say nothing, just the fact that you're there speaks a lot, and it helps build that credibility and trust. I want to champion the young leaders who are working under older leaders, and so my challenge to them is trusting the Holy Spirit in these young leaders. And a funny story: we were doing training in China with the Jingpo people, minority people in southwest China, and we were teaching them about leadership issues and about next generation leadership training. And I asked the question, I said, here's the question: can you trust the Holy Spirit in the lives of these young people? And as soon as I said that, as soon as the words came out of my mouth, a white dove flew into the meeting, circled the meeting 3 times, and landed on the lectern right in front of me where I was speaking. Wow. So I said, well, I guess that answers that question.
Confirmation.
Yeah.
Oh, brilliant.
So, that was pretty cool. Yeah, but that's it, is allowing them to make some mistakes, but being there for them when they do. Yeah, because, I think the best approach is to give responsibility, which most cultures are pretty good at giving someone a job, Okay, here's a job, do this. But often we don't give them the authority that goes along with the responsibility. Brilliant. So give responsibility, give authority, and then get feedback, because that's what Jesus did. He sent them out. He said, I've got a job for you to do. Go and preach the kingdom, to cast out demons, heal the sick. He gave them a job, and he gave them the authority or the power to do that. I'll give you power over all the power, all the authority of the enemy. Yeah. And then they came back to him and reported and said, wow, demons are subject to us. And then Jesus had to kind of correct their perspective a little. Yeah, that's cool. But, be excited about that. Be much more excited that your name is written in the book of life. So there's that whole mentoring there. Yeah, here's a job for you to do. Here's the authority to do it. Come back and report, and we'll tweak it if we feel that you need some adjustment. And usually it stops at giving someone a job. I was talking to a guy just last week who worked in another Asian country, and he was talking to a young man. He said, our leaders always scold us when we do wrong. They never praise us when we do good, because that's what fathers do, right? That was their perspective, that just scold when you do wrong, but don't encourage when they do good. So that's the other side of the coin that I guess needs to be addressed.
Yeah, it's interesting, Ross, because we can come and approach different situations and a certain meeting or a conversation with certain lenses. We all see life through a lens, and it's a lens of experience, a lens of a culture, or different things like that. And, I think someone like yourself that has had decades, more than half your life, in other cultures, and now ministering and believing into that, you probably think more like an Asian than a Australian, Westerner there, talking about the Broncos. Come on, mate. We're doing well this year.
Man, that's all.
Yes, that's right. I'm here to help you, Ross. I'm here to help you.
Thank you.
We thought we were going to discuss leadership, but actually this is a counselling session. So
thank you. I need
you passed. Yeah. And it's interesting. Like there are certain frustrations that I'm sure most people that live cross culturally still deal with, but. There's frustrations in each culture, and as you start to develop, and it's like an onion, you take one layer off and you keep looking within, and it's sort of, there's something that reveals in itself. And I think the countries that you've been involved in that really sort of strong hierarchical structure, yet we've, model the servanthood of Jesus and how he came and really relationally connected with people. It's not us bringing a Western culture into a different culture. It's actually us sharing a kingdom culture that can penetrate into their culture,
Yes.
And so I think you do that really well. And I remember, one things that, we really focused on in our season in Chiang Rai, and, going through that COVID period as well was very challenging. To be honest, I thought it was just something that is going on, and I don't know, I didn't really think much about it. But when the borders shut and you get locked down in your city and there's military on the roads telling you and checking your passports and where are you going and things like that, you thought there was some seriousness to it. And it really gave me an opportunity to focus on, like, I'm here to develop people and to see the young people rise up. And it's easy to say that, I think it's easy to just go, oh, we're here to change the next generation, and it's all about the next one, and it's words is talk until actions applied, which brings transformation. And I started to simplify things of like, how practically can I share and develop people. And there was one thing which we'll share in leading into something that you've shared before, Ross, but I remember often, as a pastor in an Asian country, you're kind of revered, you're a sense of like, the next thing to an angel, it's the next level to God as such, and everything kind of flows through a pastor. And it really frustrated me. It really kind of like irked me. It used to annoy me, people asking for prayer on Sundays, because it was like I was the one with the healing power. And yet the theology that we have is that God and his spirit moves through all people and all men, that come under his name. And so one thing that I used to love to do, and it used to get the young people really uncomfortable, and it was really did three things. If someone asked for prayer and I changed my mindset and I said, brilliant, I'd love to pray with you and believe for what you're praying for. And as soon as they would come and approach me, I would get a young person and bring them alongside me, one of my young leaders, and go, hey, can you pray for this person? And I would affirm them by praying alongside with them. And I would be respectful, and I would still pray and finish the prayer, because in a culture, it would be seemed disrespectful if I got a young person and you've asked for prayer and you've now asked a young person to pray. But I was doing two things. I was trying to change the mindset of a congregation and a community. I was trying to empower a young person to go, the call of God is just upon you as it is upon me, and to really change culture subtly and still remain respectful to the culture that they have of the elders. And you shared with me, Ross, about those challenges of that cross-cultural ministry, and shared about the guy, a young man that you're starting to develop, and you might share a little bit more about this story. But as you're developing him and challenging him, why don't you just share about his story and him maturing about his first time preaching?
Sure. Yeah, and it's all about the one, as this theme is, and Jesus, the crowds followed him, but he was always about the one, the the woman that touched the hem of his garment, Zacchaeus up the tree. It's all about the individuals that Jesus focused on, and that's we've tried to do that as well. And and this young man you're talking about, it just started out. He lived in my neighbourhood, and we just became friends. Never shared anything about the gospel. We'd go and have coffee together, go on a motorbike ride together. And one day he asked me, "So what are you actually doing here?" And in the country that we were living at then, that's a dangerous question. So I just said, well, we're just here trying to make a difference. We've got a community centre helping poor children, etc., etc. And he became very interested and came with us to that centre and went to one of the concerts that we held. And ultimately, I said, look, I'm preaching at a church. Would you like to come? He said, sure. He came and he gave his life to Christ. And within a very short time, well, relatively, maybe 2-3 years, he was preaching in our church. We'd started a church in that city. And, we started off here, come with me, we're going to this place, come along and just see how we do it and share a testimony here, do this here. Okay, this week you're going to preach and then we're going to sit down, we're going to talk about how you went, how you can do it better, what you did really well. And someone came to me and they said, he's preaching, he's only a young Christian. And I said, yeah, well, I want him to get into ministry and start preaching before he gets told that he can't, before he gets told that only professionals, people that have been through Bible college, people that have been in ministry for 20 years, they're the only ones, they're the giant slayers. I said, well, yep, I want him to avoid that and just get in boots and all. And he did, and he's a wonderful man of God.
So good. I think that's really a responsibility that's upon us, isn't it? To provide those opportunities, and empower them, and I guess knowing that they're going to make mistakes and knowing the fall, and it's like I just really sense that the Father's grace upon his people. It's like he believes in us before we believe in ourselves, and we still step out in our failures, in our sin, in our brokenness. And yet the Father's hands are just there to embrace us as we,
100%,
come back to Him.
And what you've been doing up in Chiang Rai there is a great example of that. You've just got these young guys around you and believed in them, trusted them, and just involved them, and they've really risen to that challenge. But if you don't give them the challenge, you don't give them that little push and that, as well as having an arm around their shoulder, they won't live up to that potential that they all have. So that's a great model what you've achieved there. It really is.
I think it's interesting because it's challenging. It's great to have an idea, but it still has its own personal challenges, because when you have a senior, we're talking in a Thai context here, it can be seemed disrespectful by me giving an opportunity to a younger person than to the senior that's in the room. And so there's that it's sort of like there's this hidden battle behind the scenes that you're wanting to go this way, but there's a coaching moment even for the elders. And, I think that's probably a real grace zone that you're blessed with, Ross, with your experience, is naturally in the society that you have, people can look up to you and maybe you can speak into lives, particularly in that more mature level of the leadership, and then really challenge them about, giving these guys, the ones coming through, an opportunity and empowering them.
Yeah, and the whole communication thing is so important, as you've been saying, in all of that. Like, when you talk about servant leadership in Thailand, it's you're either a servant or you're a leader, but you're not both. Is kind of the matrix that you're working in, and so that's the challenge. And you can talk about it and teach about it, and you should, but you have to do it from within. You can't do it from without, and and it's more modeling. It's more the example that's going to speak, like Jesus washing the disciples' feet. That's not his role. He's the leader, so. That's always going to be a challenge here in Thailand, that whole concept of, we're talking the other day about P Nong. P is you're an elder, Nong you're a younger or a subordinate, and there are almost no equals in Thai society. It's always like that, and so that's that's something that is not going to go away quickly. But you have to work within that framework, but bring kingdom values into that as well. And sometimes it's difficult to understand what is Thai culture and what is Buddhism influence. And the same with our countries. What is Bible culture, kingdom culture, and what is Western culture? And sometimes we almost see them as the same thing. And so we have to try and discern as well what is really kingdom culture all about.
Yeah, great. And it's about leaving a legacy. It's about us making an impact and leaving, that sense of ripple effect that, that one day if you're not serving the gracious people there in northern Thailand, that you've impacted. And so what's your desire, Ross? I know that you're actually studying your PhD at the moment. Is that correct? And you want to share a little bit about
a PhD
about that?
Alpha-Crucis, yeah.
Yeah, share a bit about what you're focusing on through that.
Well, the major research question there is what are the essential components of an in-service leadership development program for Pentecostal pastors in northern Thailand. So it's quite specific. So what we're looking at is, what challenges are they facing? What problems? What areas do they want to and need to develop in? And that basically becomes the curriculum for a program, because it's very easy just to import stuff. And more than 90% of the materials in Thailand about leadership have been translated from English. And brilliant stuff, great principles, but the application doesn't take any consideration to the context. What are they really facing? What are the challenges? And so I ask a lot of questions like, what's the most fulfilling thing that you do? What's the most challenging? What's the most frustrating? And then, if you could go back and talk to yourself when you first started ministry, what advice would you give to yourself? What do you wish you had studied at Bible college that they didn't tell you? And so they're the sorts of things that we want to build from the ground up to help. So they see it's responding to their questions, not just me providing something that I think is a good idea.
Fantastic. And very specific, of that region of the world. And, leaving, the experience that you've had. And most people listening online might not know, Ross, but you're very fluent in Thai language and gifted with language. And I think the ability to speak into the hearts of that nation and those leaders, is really going to have an impact that, others will get to see. And it's really exciting. I think there's an exciting time in that part of the world. There's a real development. The internet's come in there over 20 years ago, and it's just, the exposure to what can be done and who God is really exciting. So, it's great.
Yeah, there was when I first arrived in '83, an old missionary came to me and said, Ross, you can never understand Thai culture if you don't understand Thai language. And you can never understand Thai language unless you understand Thai culture. And I wasn't really sure what he was saying at that time, but I sure do now, because the Thai language is very complex in the sense there are categories that we don't even have in our language. So to really understand Thai culture, understanding the language is so very, very important.
Oh, it's great. Ross, man, we could chat all day. And we've already had lots of chats in the past and just doing life. And, for all the listeners watching online and throughout the platforms, I want to encourage you, follow Ross and Donna and the amazing work they're doing in northern Thailand. Incredible leaders and really helping to raise that next generation and coming along senior leaders to help develop next gen leaders, and that's really amazing. So it's so good to connect. And if you'd like to connect more with Ross and Donna, you can jump on our website at atci.org.au and look up the field workers and put in Ross. You'll see his name there, or Thailand, and connect through him that way. If you'd love to support them, get behind them, incredible, faithful leaders. Also, Ross, we're going to finish up right now, but hey, why don't you just quickly mention a couple of books that you've written, and some of our listeners online might be interested in more stories about the missionaries, about your life. What are those couple of books that you've written?
Well, let me think. Here's one.
Oh, there you go. I prepared
It's
this
called
one. The
Stolen Cow and 99 Other Stories, and I've written that under a pseudonym of Ross Remington, because in the place I was in, I talked about certain things that I didn't want certain people to know about. So anyway, that's a autobiographical book, and it's about our ministry in Thailand, in other places, and just little stories with a dad joke at the end of every chapter. And then the other book is this one, Living in the Moment. It's the same approach, same theme that goes through. It's all about missions. Yeah, you need to contact me directly for the book, and if you read that, it will bless you. If you buy it, it will bless me.
Fantastic. Great. Ross, thanks so much for making time. Looking forward to chatting again in the future. Keep up the great work, and we champion you, and thanks for representing ACCI and the incredible missionaries and field workers and projects that we represent so well. God bless you,
Thanks,
mate, and we'll catch up
great
soon.
to chat with you, and God bless you, everybody that's listening, and remember that the harvest is plentiful, but the labourers are few, so we're always looking for people to connect, whether it's back in Australia or on the field somewhere. So be open to what God calls you to do. Bless you. Thanks, Enoch.
Awesome. Thanks, day. Ross. See you, mate. Bye.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of One Life at a Time. To play a part in making a difference, or to find out more about ACCI's impact across the globe, visit acci.org.au.